Elias Vale reached the outer gates of Veyrath just as the planet's second moon rose like a cracked blue coin above the crystal forest. His boots were still dusty from the landing fields, his travel coat smelled faintly of engine oil, and the small translation chip behind his ear had already warned him 3 times that entering the royal district without a verified invitation could result in ceremonial disintegration. He was fairly certain ceremonial made it worse. The city itself looked as if someone had taught lightning how to become architecture. Silver towers curved into the sky, bridges floated without supports, and luminous rail lines carried silent vehicles between balconies where long-eared alien nobles watched the streets with unreadable faces. Elias tried not to stare. He failed almost immediately. At the central gate, 2 armored soldiers crossed their plasma spears before him. "Purpose?" one demanded. "I'm here to repair a cargo relay," Elias said, lifting his worn toolkit. "Possibly save a machine, definitely not overthrow a kingdom. My schedule is packed." The soldier did not smile. The second soldier looked as if he wanted to, but had been trained against it. Before they could question him further, a deep roar rolled through the city. The towers trembled. Glass birds scattered from the palace roof. Somewhere beyond the walls, alarms screamed in rising metallic waves. The soldiers turned pale beneath their bronze skin. Elias slowly lowered his toolkit. That sounded expensive. A command signal flashed across the soldiers' helmets, and both rushed away, forgetting him completely. The gate's security field flickered open for 3 seconds. Elias looked left, looked right, and made the sort of decision that had caused most of his interesting injuries. He stepped through. Inside the palace grounds, chaos moved with military precision. Hover drones streaked overhead, medics ran past carrying silver cases, royal guards formed defensive lines around a descending platform where Queen Lysera stood in battle armor that shimmered like starlight over dark water. She looked almost human, except for her elegant long ears, faintly luminous violet eyes, and the calm expression of someone who had personally argued with death and found it badly organized. Below the palace, an enormous containment pit yawned open. Energy chains as thick as trees snapped and sparked around something moving in the smoke. Then Elias saw it. The beast was larger than a transport shuttle, covered in black armored plates and pale scars that glowed with blue fire. 4 horns curved from its skull, its eyes burned like small suns, and its claws scraped trenches into reinforced stone. Around it lay broken combat machines, shattered restraint pillars, and one very unfortunate cannon folded neatly in half. A nearby scientist whispered, "No one can approach it." Elias, who had approached several terrible decisions in his life, muttered, "Good to know." At that exact moment, a blast from the broken containment field threw him forward. He stumbled down the ramp, arms spinning, toolkit banging against his knee, until he slid to a stop several meters from the beast. Every weapon in the courtyard turned toward him. The Queen shouted something, but the translator chip, perhaps from panic, rendered it as, "Human, kindly avoid becoming soup." Elias raised one hand. "I strongly support that plan." The beast lowered its head. Its breath struck him like warm thunder. Elias felt the ground vibrate through his bones. He should have run. He wanted to run. Unfortunately, his legs had voted for retirement. The creature sniffed him. Its burning eyes narrowed. Then, with a rumble that silenced the alarms, the monster folded its front legs beneath itself and lowered its massive skull until it rested at Elias's feet. No one moved. Elias stared at the beast. The beast stared back. Very carefully, because stupidity sometimes wore the mask of courage, Elias reached out and touched the side of its horn. The creature exhaled, almost peacefully. Elias swallowed. "Well," he said softly, "you're less aggressive than my last landlord." A nervous laugh escaped one of the soldiers before he clamped his mouth shut. Queen Lysera descended the platform step by step, her long ears angled forward, her face filled with disbelief. The most feared creature in her kingdom had become still beneath the hand of a stranger from Earth, and beneath Elias's palm, hidden symbols began to glow. Silence spread across the containment courtyard more quickly than the emergency alarms had. Hundreds of soldiers remained frozen with plasma rifles aimed toward the impossible scene, but not a single finger dared tighten a trigger. The beast, which had destroyed entire armored divisions over the years, lay peacefully beside a bewildered human mechanic who looked far more uncomfortable than heroic. Elias slowly glanced toward the Queen. "I'd appreciate it," he said carefully, "if nobody fired while I'm standing in front of something with teeth the size of my apartment." A few guards exchanged uncertain glances. Even Queen Lysera struggled to answer. She had witnessed diplomats remain calm during orbital bombardments, yet nothing in her life had prepared her for this. "Lower your weapons," she ordered. Several commanders hesitated. "My queen—" "That," she interrupted without taking her eyes off Elias, "was not a suggestion." One after another, plasma rifles lowered. The beast released another deep rumble, but this time it sounded strangely content. Its enormous tail lazily swept across the reinforced floor, accidentally flattening a surveillance drone that had drifted too close. Elias watched the crushed machine. "I don't suppose someone was using that?" No one laughed. Then one young engineer quietly raised a hand. "I was." Elias gave him an apologetic smile. "Sorry. Your giant friend appears to dislike paparazzi." A few nervous chuckles finally escaped the nearby technicians, breaking the unbearable tension. Queen Lysera approached until only a few meters separated her from the creature. Her silver battle armor reflected the blue energy still flickering around the broken prison. Up close, Elias noticed details he had missed before. Her long ears tapered gracefully behind strands of silver hair, faint glowing markings traced along her temples, and although her expression remained composed, curiosity burned within her violet eyes. "You touched him," she said. "I noticed. You are still alive." "I noticed that too." The corner of her mouth almost moved. "What is your name, human?" "Elias Vale." "Occupation?" "Starship mechanic. Occasional electrical problem. Full-time collector of bad luck." The Queen looked at the creature. "I believe your luck has become our mystery." Without warning, several floating medical scanners descended from above. Thin blue beams swept across Elias from head to toe. "Please remain still," announced a calm, mechanical voice. "I wasn't planning on sprinting." The scanners projected holographic results into the air. No implanted control devices, no psychic amplifiers, no quantum resonance equipment, no genetic modifications detected. A scientist frowned harder with every report. "That is impossible." Another researcher adjusted his visor. "Run the scan again." The results returned identical. The beast slowly lifted its massive head and gently nudged Elias's shoulder. The movement looked almost affectionate. Gasps spread through the courtyard. Commander Reth, the Queen's chief military officer, stepped forward. "My Queen, this could be deception. Humans may possess unknown technology." Elias blinked. "If I owned secret technology, I promise I'd start by repairing my coffee maker." "What is coffee?" "You're fortunate not to know." Several younger guards failed to suppress their laughter. Commander Reth remained unimpressed. The Queen studied Elias for another long moment. "Walk." "What?" "Walk across the courtyard." Elias shrugged. "If your enormous friend disagrees, I'm blaming you." He cautiously took one step. The beast immediately rose to its feet. Dozens of weapons instinctively lifted again. Instead of attacking, the creature quietly followed behind Elias like an obedient guardian. He stopped. The beast stopped. He turned. The creature tilted its gigantic head almost curiously. "This is getting weird," Elias whispered. A royal biologist whispered back, "No, this is getting historic." Suddenly, faint blue light emerged beneath overlapping plates on the beast's neck. Ancient symbols shimmered across its armor. At exactly the same moment, identical symbols briefly appeared beneath the skin of Elias's right hand, where he had touched the horn. The glow lasted only 2 seconds before disappearing. Every scientific instrument in the courtyard erupted with warning tones. One holographic display flashed a message written in a forgotten language. An elderly historian stared at it, his face draining of color. I've seen those symbols before." Queen Lysera turned sharply. "Where?" The old scholar swallowed. "In records sealed over 3,000 years ago." The entire courtyard became silent once again. The historian looked first at the peaceful beast, then at the confused mechanic standing beside it. His voice trembled. "They belonged to the Lost Star Guardians, and according to every surviving archive, only one species was ever able to command them." Every eye slowly shifted toward Elias. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I have a feeling you're about to tell me it's humans." The old historian gave a slow, astonished nod. "Yes," Elias sighed. "I was really hoping you'd say accountants." Queen Lysera did not allow the courtyard to dissolve into panic. She raised one hand, and every alarm, drone, and anxious officer fell silent, as if the palace itself had remembered who ruled it. Elias wished he owned a hand like that. His own hands were good mostly for tightening bolts, burning toast, and apparently awakening ancient monsters. The beast lowered its head beside him and exhaled warm air across his coat. "Please don't start liking me too much," Elias whispered. "I'm terrible with pets. I once killed a cactus by encouraging it." The creature gave a low rumble that sounded suspiciously amused. Lysera heard it. Her long ears tilted slightly forward. "Did it just laugh?" "I hope not," Elias said. "If it develops a sense of humor, we're all doomed." The Queen ordered the old historian to lead them into the lower archives beneath the palace, where the oldest memories of Veyrath were locked away from politics, war, and inconvenient curiosity. Elias walked between armored guards while the beast followed behind, forcing the entire procession to use the largest service tunnels. Several servants fainted. One cleaning robot tried to polish the beast's claw and was gently pushed aside like a confused beetle. The archive doors opened only after Lysera placed her palm against a black crystal panel. The walls awakened with blue veins of light, revealing a vast chamber filled with floating memory stones, suspended star maps, and broken statues of warriors wearing armor unlike anything Elias had seen. Their helmets were shaped with sweeping crests, and beside every carved figure stood a creature resembling the beast. The historian activated a damaged hologram. Static gathered into the image of an ancient battlefield among burning moons. Tall alien warriors fought beside humans in dark star-forged armor, commanding guardian beasts through gestures, not chains. Together they battled shadow-like machines pouring from a torn region of space. Elias stared at the human figures. "That can't be right," he murmured. Lysera's voice softened. "Your people were here before." The hologram shifted. A human commander placed his glowing hand against the head of a guardian. The same symbols Elias had seen beneath his skin burned across the image. The beast beside him lowered itself, almost reverently. For the first time, Elias stopped joking. The chamber felt too large, too old, too heavy with the memory of people no one had thanked properly. He had always believed humanity's history was messy but ordinary. Wars, inventions, mistakes, taxes. Now an alien archive was suggesting humans had once stood between civilizations and extinction. The historian continued, voice trembling with awe. The Guardians were bred not as monsters, but as living companions bonded to commanders of the Lost Star Guardians. When the ancient war ended, The human fleets vanished beyond an unstable wormhole called the Ashen Gate. The remaining guardian beasts slowly died, except one placed in stasis beneath Veyrath to protect the royal bloodline. Lysera looked toward the massive creature. "We imprisoned our protector." No one answered. Elias stepped closer to the beast and touched the scarred armor above its eye. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Also, for the record, I shouldn't have called you a very large, angry puppy." The beast blinked slowly. Then its tail thumped once against the archive floor, shaking dust from the ceiling. A guard coughed. "I believe it accepts." Elias glanced back. "Great. I've made peace with a legendary war beast. My social skills are improving." Lysera almost smiled, but the moment broke when a hidden section of the hologram suddenly activated. The ancient commander turned toward them as though seeing across thousands of years. His recorded voice emerged, distorted, but clear enough to chill the room. "If a human hand wakes the last guardian, then the Ashen Gate has begun to open again." The star map above them flared red. Far beyond Veyrath's system, a dead region of space pulsed with returning signals. The historian staggered back. Lysera's face hardened into the calm mask of a queen preparing for disaster. Elias looked at the beast, then at the red stars. "I'm guessing," he said, "this is not the part where everyone congratulates me and serves dessert." By dawn, the entire kingdom knew that the forbidden beast had bowed to a human. By breakfast, half the capital believed Elias was a divine commander reborn. By lunch, the other half believed he was a spy, a weapon, or a very short-lived diplomatic problem. Elias learned all this while standing in a royal chamber surrounded by 12 suspicious generals, 6 scientists, 3 priests, and one enormous guardian beast that had decided the polished marble floor was an acceptable place for a nap. Commander Reth pointed at him across the strategy table. "He must be contained." Elias raised a finger. "As the person being contained, I'd like to say I'm against it. You activated a creature no army could control. I scratched its horn. Where I come from, that's not usually treason." The beast opened one burning eye and growled softly. Every officer stepped back except Queen Lysera. She stood at the head of the chamber, silver hair falling over the edges of her battle armor, her long ears still and sharp with attention. She did not look frightened. She looked like someone measuring the distance between truth and disaster. "No chains," she said. Reth stiffened. "My queen." "No chains," she repeated, and this time the air itself seemed to obey. Elias tried not to look too relieved. "For the record, I'm becoming a big fan of monarchy." Lysera gave him a sideways glance. "Do not become too comfortable." "Understood. Moderate fan." The debate continued for hours. Holographic maps spun above the table, showing the red pulse from the Ashen Gate spreading like a wound across deep space. Ancient satellites that had slept for millennia were waking. Defense towers beneath the planet's crust were sending confused signals. Somewhere in the royal vaults, sealed machines had begun whispering in a dead language. Elias listened, increasingly certain that his ordinary life had been stolen by history and replaced with an unpaid internship in galactic doom. When the meeting finally ended, Lysera led him through the palace gardens, where crystal trees chimed softly in the morning wind. The beast followed behind them, terrifying several gardeners and gently sniffing a fountain. A small group of children from the servants' quarter had gathered near the path, staring with enormous eyes. One little girl stepped forward before her mother could stop her. "Is it really tame?" Elias looked at the beast. The beast looked at Elias. "That depends," he said. "Can you define tame in a way that doesn't make me legally responsible?" The child giggled. Elias slowly placed his hand on the guardian's armored cheek. The creature lowered its head until the girl could touch the edge of one horn. Instead of roaring, it gave a low, patient rumble. The child's laughter spread through the garden like sunlight. Lysera watched without speaking. Something in her expression changed, not softened exactly, but opened. Perhaps she had spent too many years seeing the beast as a prisoned catastrophe. Now it stood among children and flowers, accepting tiny fingers with the dignity of an ancient king, pretending not to enjoy attention. "You are either very brave," Lysera said quietly, "or completely unaware of danger." Elias considered that. Most people say both, but with disappointment. Before she could answer, alarms trembled through the palace again. This time they were lower, older, rising not from modern systems, but from beneath the world. The crystal trees dimmed. The Guardian lifted its head, blue symbols igniting across its armor. A holographic message burst from Lysera's wrist guard. Planetary defense network awakening. Command authority unresolved. The ground shuddered. Far beyond the city walls, a mountain split open, revealing the black spine of an ancient weapon tower turning toward the sky. Elias stared at it. Lysera's hand moved to her sword. The beast stepped in front of them both. Elias sighed. "I miss repairing cargo relays. They screamed less." The mountain did not merely open, it unfolded like a machine remembering its shape after centuries of sleep. Plates of black stone slid apart, revealing rings of ancient metal beneath, each one carved with the same blue symbols burning across the Guardian's armor. The tower rose higher and higher until its shadow crossed the capital like a blade. Every soldier in the garden looked upward. Elias did too. "Please tell me that's decorative." Queen Lysera's wrist guard projected frantic lines of data across her face. "It is locking onto orbital traffic." "So, not decorative." A flash lit the sky. One of the kingdom's cargo satellites vanished into a cloud of silver sparks. A heartbeat later, the shockwave rolled across the city. Windows trembled, birds scattered from the crystal trees. Somewhere, a noble screamed with the impressive volume of someone who had never been mildly inconvenienced. Lysera turned sharply. "We must reach the central command complex." Commander Reth arrived with a squad of armored guards, his expression grim. "The old tunnels beneath the palace are collapsing. The defense network is waking across the continent." The Guardian lowered itself beside Elias, one massive shoulder dipping like an invitation. Elias stared. "No," the beast rumbled. "No, absolutely not." Lysera looked at him. "It wants you to ride." "I understood that. My answer remains professionally terrified." Another beam fired from the distant tower, striking the upper atmosphere. Red shields flared around the capital, but cracks spread through them like burning glass. Elias sighed and climbed onto the Guardian's armored back with all the dignity of a man mounting a moving building. "If I fall, please tell people I died heroically, not because I had poor seating." Lysera leapt up behind him with effortless grace. Her long ears streamed back as the beast surged forward. Elias, meanwhile, grabbed the nearest horn and made a sound that history would later describe generously as a battle cry. They raced through streets filled with panicked citizens and floating evacuation drones. The Guardian moved with impossible balance, its claws striking the ground in thunderous rhythm. Lysera directed soldiers through her communicator, calm even as ancient war machines began rising from beneath plazas and riverbeds. One spider-like machine dropped from a bridge ahead, its core glowing red. Elias pointed. "That thing looks unfriendly." Lysera drew her plasma sword. "It is an automated siege crawler." "I preferred unfriendly thing." The Guardian crashed into the machine before it could fire, tearing it aside with one sweep of its horns. Sparks rained across the street. Citizens cheered from shelters as the beast carried them beyond the capital and into the crystal forest, where buried doors were opening among the roots. The entrance to the central command complex waited beneath a cliff of dark glass. Its gate recognized the Guardian first. Then blue light scanned Elias's hand. The ancient doors groaned open. Inside, the air was cold and filled with floating fragments of forgotten technology. A corridor stretched downward, lined with statues of human commanders and long-eared warriors standing side by side. Elias slowed as he passed them, feeling their silent eyes follow him. Lysera stepped beside him. "You are afraid." "Very. Yet you came." He gave a small smile. "At some point, fear becomes less useful than walking." For the first time, Lysera looked at him not as a mystery, not as a risk, but as someone standing with her at the edge of disaster. Then the floor lit beneath their feet, and an ancient voice filled the corridor. "Guardian Command Bloodline detected. Planetary judgment sequence beginning." Elias looked at Lysera. "I don't like the word judgment." The Guardian growled toward the darkness ahead. From the walls, hundreds of red lights opened like eyes. Red lights opened along the corridor, one after another, until the walls seemed filled with watching eyes. Elias held up both hands as if surrendering to the building itself. "For the record," he said, "I have never enjoyed being judged by architecture." The ancient voice answered without emotion. "Command bloodline unstable. Royal authority present. Guardian bond incomplete. Defensive purge recommended." Queen Lysera's blade ignited with a silver-blue hiss. "Define purge." The floor beneath them split open. From below rose three armored machines shaped like skeletal knights, their bodies made of black metal and rotating gravity cores. Each carried a weapon that bent the air around it. Elias swallowed. "I think it defined purge." The Guardian charged before the machines could fire. Its horns struck the first knight and hurled it into a wall hard enough to crack ancient stone. Lysera moved beside it like a streak of moonlight, cutting through the second machine's weapon arm. Elias, having no sword, no armor, and absolutely no wish to become a heroic stain, grabbed a fallen cable and jammed it into a sparking control panel. The nearest machine froze. Elias blinked. "I meant to do that." "You connected a coolant line to a memory port," Lysera shouted. "Is that bad?" The machine exploded behind him. "Apparently flexible." They fought deeper into the command complex, passing chambers where old holograms flickered to life. Elias saw humans in star-black armor laughing beside long-eared warriors around battle tables. He saw guardian beasts sleeping beside children in peaceful courtyards. He saw the same creature now beside him, younger, unscarred, standing proudly beneath alien suns. Then the final memory appeared. The Guardian chained beneath Veyrath, not by enemies but by frightened descendants who had forgotten what it was. Centuries passed in flashes. Soldiers attacked it. Scientists shocked it. Priests called it cursed. The beast roared not from hatred, but from loneliness so deep it had become madness. Lysera lowered her sword. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "We did this." The Guardian stood still before the hologram, its burning eyes dimmed. For the first time it looked not ancient or terrifying, but wounded. Elias placed his palm against its armored cheek. The blue symbols beneath his skin returned, brighter than before. "I'm sorry," he said. "You waited all that time and nobody remembered your name." The complex trembled. The ancient voice returned. "Guardian name required for command restoration." Lysera looked at the archives streaming across the walls. His name was Kaerun. The beast raised its head. The entire facility answered. Blue light swept through every corridor, replacing the red glare. The war machines lowered their weapons. Somewhere far above, the defense towers began to turn away from the sky, but the central core still pulsed with warning. "Final confirmation required," said the voice. "Human command heir and royal sovereign must declare peace protocol." Elias glanced at Lysera. "Do we need paperwork?" "Speak from the heart. That's worse. I'm terrible without forms." Despite everything, Lysera smiled. Together they stepped before the core. Elias placed his glowing hand on one side of the crystal. Lysera placed hers on the other. Kaerun stood behind them, vast and silent. Elias took a breath. The war is over. Nobody is invading. Nobody needs to be vaporized today. Lysera added, by authority of Veyrath's crown, the Guardian is restored. The old alliance remembered, and all weapons will stand down. For one long second, nothing happened. Then the core bloomed with light. Across the planet, ancient towers folded back into mountains. War machines sank into their vaults. The cracked shield above the capital healed like a sunrise. Kaerun lowered his head between them and released a rumble so gentle it shook dust from Elias's coat. Elias patted his horn. Good boy. Lysera's long ears twitched. He is an ancient guardian of civilizations. Fine, Elias said. Excellent boy. This time the Queen laughed. 3 days after the ancient towers folded back into the mountains, the capital of Veyrath, gathered beneath a sky washed clean by restored planetary shields. The same courtyard where soldiers had once aimed trembling weapons at Kaerun was now filled with banners, music, and civilians standing close enough to see the legendary Guardian breathe without running for their lives. Elias stood beside Queen Lysera on the palace steps, wearing ceremonial armor that had clearly been designed by someone who believed comfort was a moral weakness. The silver plates gleamed, the cape kept trying to strangle him, and the engraved boots made him walk like a confused statue. I look ridiculous, he whispered. Lysera did not turn her head. Her long ears caught the words anyway. You look honored. I can be both. Kaerun rumbled behind them, low and amused. The enormous Guardian wore no chains now. His old scars still crossed his armored body, but the blue symbols beneath them glowed steadily, no longer broken by rage or loneliness. Children waved at him from the crowd. One little boy threw him a sweet crystal bun, which Kaerun caught delicately between 2 claws. Elias stared. He gets snacks, and I get metal shoes. This kingdom has priorities. Lysera's mouth curved faintly. He is better behaved during ceremonies. That is a cruel but accurate statement. When the royal herald stepped forward, silence settled over the courtyard. Commander Reth, once Elias's loudest opponent, approached in full armor and knelt before Kaerun first, then Elias. The gesture moved through the soldiers like a wave. One by one, the guards who had feared the beast lowered themselves in respect. Reth's voice carried across the courtyard. We mistook our protector for our enemy. We mistook a stranger for a threat. Today, we remember what fear made us forget. Elias had prepared several jokes for the moment, but none of them reached his mouth. He looked at the soldiers, the civilians, the scholars, the children, and finally at Kaerun. The creature had waited thousands of years for someone to remember him. Elias had arrived by accident with dusty boots and a broken toolkit, yet somehow that had been enough. Lysera placed a star-shaped medallion in his hand. By the crown of Veyrath, Elias Veil of Earth is named Guardian Envoy of the Restored Alliance. The crowd erupted. Elias looked at the medallion. Does this come with training? Yes. Pay? Possibly. Vacation? Lysera glanced at the sky. Unlikely, he sighed. A very royal answer. Laughter rolled through the courtyard, softer than cheers but warmer. Even Reth smiled, though he looked personally offended by the effort. Later, as evening settled over the crystal gardens, Elias stood alone with Kaerun and Lysera beneath the glowing trees. The repaired defense network shimmered faintly among the stars, no longer hunting enemies that had vanished into history. The Ashen Gate had grown silent again, sealed by the peace protocol and watched by satellites newly awakened to protect, not destroy. I came here to fix a cargo relay, Elias said. Lysera stood beside him. You fixed something older. He touched Kaerun's horn, feeling the steady pulse of the bond beneath his palm. Once he had drifted from port to port, repairing machines and leaving before anyone could expect more from him. Now a kingdom knew his name. A guardian trusted his hand, and a queen had looked at him as if an ordinary human could still carry the weight of ancient promises. "I used to think courage meant not being afraid," he said. "Turns out it means being terrified and walking forward anyway." Kaerun nudged him gently, nearly knocking him into a fountain. Elias caught himself, and sometimes it means surviving affection from a creature larger than a shuttle. Lysera laughed, clear and unguarded. Above them, the stars burned quietly. Veyrath was safe, Kaerun was free, and the lost alliance had begun again. Not with conquest, not with prophecy, but with one human who had reached out his hand when everyone else stepped back.